Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope that wherever you're at, you're having a wonderful day. Wanted to do a video on my take on the Menasor, the Legacy Menasor. Finally got all my Stunticons here, and I'm so eager to put this guy together. I kind of figure I'd do a little video on it for anyone that's maybe interested. So I've already done some of the transformations. Uh, we'll start off mainly with Motor Master. I did do a separate video on this guy, so you can watch that one. I'll probably put a link at the end of this video so you guys could see my thoughts on this guy. But essentially, Motor Master himself becomes the torso here for Menasor. And here's the head essentially. The cool thing is that unlike other combiners from Combiner Wars in the past, everything in this guy tabs in very nice and tight. Everything's kind of already in place. As you guys can see, these are his arms. These are the wheels from the truck mode. These are his legs, and everything kind of tabs into place really good. I love that the antennas here are almost in a little slots there, so they don't move. They're not flimsy, and the head looks really nice, very cartoon accurate. So that's really cool. The other part of Motor Master here that essentially makes up a large part of Menasor is pretty much the trailer. And as you guys can see, these are all the parts that sort of are part of the trailer. So for example, these legs here are part of the trailer itself. So if I were to take this and sort of fold it down, you guys could see that starts to become the trailer there, and that's like essentially one side, and that's the leg itself. So the transformation of these pieces is not complicated by any means, but there you go. That is the leg part, and essentially when you tab in the car part here, like a breakdown, for example, essentially you're going to be tabbing the car parts into back here and here, and then this purple section is going to get pushed in and essentially close the shin so that it looks a bit solid like that, which is really cool. The cool thing is too is this is unlike the older Combiner Wars combiners or Power of the Primes, at least the deluxe ones. The articulation on this guy, it's very solid. I don't know if you guys could hear that there, but there's a lot of ratcheting. So I'm very hopeful that this will stay in place, unlike the older ones. And of course, you get two of them because you need two legs. So that's where those go. Similarly, the arms are again part of the trailer, mainly the back section. You could see the wheels here. And in this case, this is the right arm. So you get some cool fists there. They're not articulated, but you do have a hole there to hold weapons. And you can move, you hear the ratcheting there on the arm. And then the arms feel very solid. The one exception is this arm specifically on mine. On this side, this ratcheting is a little looser than I would have liked. It stays in place, but it moves with less effort versus the left arm here, where you can actually hear the ratchet. Whereas here, I don't know if they worn out or what, nothing. So that's a bit, surprising there. But the rest of it is very solid, which again gives me hope. And these are the parts that essentially go attached into the shoulder part of Menasor. The other part of the torso, which is also the trailer itself, is essentially this part, which is the waist and the lower legs. But essentially, this is going to be in place like that, and it's a very simple transformation for this, and boom, you kind of already have that in place. But this was all stuck inside of the trailer essentially. I love the detailing they've added here. The Decepticon symbol certainly looks awesome. And again, continuing how everything is, you hear those crunchy ratchets. it's really nice seeing that, considering I have a couple other combiners from the older Combiner War series, and those can't stand worth of it for anything. So it's cool that they took that into account and now gave us these meaty ratchets. Same thing going this way. So that's really cool. And there is some articulation here as well. Now, as far as the limbs themselves, the lower parts, the cars, so for example, these two here, Wall Rider and Breakdown here, you're essentially keeping them in car mode and just bending the fronts in like that. So both sides, left and right, are going to look pretty much the same. You're not doing much of anything to them, so that's where they will go. And theoretically, you could put this foot on the right and this one on the left. I think if you want to be accurate, this would be the right foot and this would be the left. So that's how I'm going to do it. And then the arms, a little more involved, other than than the feet. Essentially, these break apart in half. There is a section here that if you have a little pin or something, you could press that in, and it releases this section already. So as you can see, this is pretty much vehicle mode, and you kind of just press that in. This comes apart, and that makes his right arm essentially in two pieces, and that's gonna go tabbed into here. Essentially, there are holes here and here where you can put them in, and I'll take you guys through those steps. So that's the arms, at least the right arm, and the left arm is essentially the same thing. So dead end, pretty much the same thing as drag strip. There is a section here that you press in and it releases this. Do not try to pull these apart without pressing that in, because you'll end up breaking something. But as you guys can see, essentially the arms just break up into two pieces. There you go. Now, to put this together, I usually try to start with the torso itself. So once you have this guy here in this mode, essentially you're going to grab this part here, and there are tabs that are going to go here and here. I don't know if you could see that. And they're going to go here, here, and here. And essentially you're just going to try to match them up so that they go in. They tab in really nice. Once they are in, there is a section back here, this purple tab, and there is a little nub here that will go slotted into that section there to hold it all in place. And once that's in, it makes a very secure connection, right? So you guys can see this is already coming together and looking real nice. So once you have that in, what you can do is we'll put him aside. You'll see him there. We'll start off with the legs. So as I said, you can grab these, and there are sections here where you can sort of slot these guys in. So you're just going to push up against the purple parts, and as you can see, it'll start pushing the plastic sections in. They're on a spring, and you're just going to push them in as such. If just make sure they match up pretty well. And same thing down here. I don't know if you could see there's a tab in there, that square that goes into place. But once it's in, it's pretty much in there. That's the one thing, again, that I do appreciate about these, that once they're in, guys. There you go. I don't know if you heard that. Now, good luck getting these out. It'll probably take a lot of force, which I guess is both good and bad. But it is very sturdy. So you guys can see that's one leg. And then we'll do the same thing with the other one. Again, very similar holes here and these sections down here to attach to here. So I essentially just do this and just make sure you match up the tabs, and same thing down here, that you push all that in. But you are in, you're done with the legs essentially. These are very similar to the Combiner War ports. So, and they fit back here, and this is pretty much all Combiner Wars, which is interesting. So then what you do is you could take then the leg here and slide it into place. You kind of just slide it in, and boom, there's one leg. And you kind of slide that in, and then there's your legs. So again, pretty cool that you now have the legs there in place. There you go. So before we move up, we'll do the arms. And essentially, you're going to take these. This is the left part. So this is going to go slotted here in this section. It's going to go like that. But drag strip is the right arm. So again, as I said, these sections here are going to go in here. And the two tabs here are going to go in there. So just line those up so you guys can see. And essentially push them in. And they again fit in very, very securely. And then you're going to do the same thing with the bottom part. So the bottom part essentially has two of these. Just match them up. And these two sections are also going to go in there. So we're just going to do that. You guys can see that. And just push it in. Once it's in, it's in. You guys can see there's a spot there. And there is one arm. That looks, I got to admit, this looks pretty cool. And again, this is ratcheted this way. Mine's a little loose this way, which is unfortunate. But it looks pretty cool. So before we put up that arm, we'll do the other one. So same thing here. You're just going to take the upper portion of the car. And again, you've got sections here and here. You're going to just, boom, push that in. It's in there. Same thing here with the bottom. You got two here and here. And you're just going to push that in. And you are done. You see the section right there? It's kind of cool. And then you're done. Then you're ready to sort of put the legs on. Sorry, the arms on. And we'll do that right now. Let me give you a bit of a better angle. Okay, so got you up a little higher here. We're going to put on the arms. And as I said, all you're doing is you're sliding this section into the torso here. And it's just pretty much sliding it down. And then that's it. It kind of just sits in place. Same thing here. You're going to slide this down and again, slide it down into place. And then you're going to take these two sections and you could do that. And then you are pretty much done with Menasor. And I have to agree with a lot of the sentiment that this is probably one of the better combiners. I mean, I guess excluding something like Predaking or Devastator officially that Hasbro has done. I think it beats the pants off any Combiner Wars, even something like Superion, which is one of my favorite ones that I do have. So there you guys could see him standing in all his glory. There are a couple little things that do bug me, so we'll start off with those. Now, I do think the proportions for the thighs here, I wish he was a little slightly longer on this section to give him better proportions, because right now the arms seem slightly too long for his body. And then I do wish the thighs were a little sort of thicker, because right now they look very small in comparison to like the shins. And then that brings me to the feet, which I do think the feet should have been made slightly bigger to compensate for those bigger shins. But I would say, I mean, that's really it, because as you see it right there, as you see this toy, as you see this figure there in Menasor form, he looks awesome. Now, he's also a bit of a parts former, but in all honesty, in the cartoon, Menasor was just a bunch of cars stuck to Motormaster, right? At least that's the way he came off. The paint's really well done. For me, specifically, I am so glad that they paid attention to the ratchets. So, you know, you guys could hear that. There's also ratcheting here on the ankles, so you can put him in different poses if need be. Like, I'll try to post him up here, you know, as best as I can without messing or breaking anything. But you guys could see there's ratchets pretty much everywhere. And there you go. And just messing with that. But you guys could see, like, I couldn't do that to a combiner wars combiner. The thing would just fall apart. And that and the fact that a lot of them, at least the stock ones, I'll show you one that were pretty ugly, even though I bought a lot of them. But this is awesome. You know, it's hard to nitpick it. I know there are things that I sort of like the thighs and the feet were wish were a little bigger. The one thing that I do wish is an overall size. I wish it would have been a little taller than what he is now. You know, just a tad bigger. But again, that's me nitpicking. This thing is awesome. I would say, I know initially, at least in my last review for Dead End, uh, I didn't quite like this figure. But in all honesty, if what you're going for is a Menasor, official one anyway, this is definitely the way to go. He stands, he poses well, he looks the part. You know, it's a lot of good detailing on the figure. Even like the back, you know, as busy as it looks, it doesn't look bad at all. I think that's uh, awesome that, you know, it has a very cohesive look in comparison to what I'm used to as far as official um, combiners. Now, I don't have any experience with the Masterpiece, the train bots. I believe they just recently released a combiner on that. But even seeing pictures of that guy versus this guy, I think I obviously prefer the way this guy sort of looks. And as you guys can see, he's holding his pose as well. He is stable. You know, it's awesome that we finally get a combiner in this line in this size that could stand, that doesn't look like a bunch of random parts put together. I think he looks really, really cool, and I would highly recommend that if you want to add a Menasor to your collection, that you definitely consider, if you haven't already, a getting into this legacy line. If you could, I believe you could still find Motor Master in certain places. The other part that I wanted to do is sort of do a bit of a comparison there. So you guys see me there playing with the ratchets size-wise, just to see sort of what expectation is there from a size perspective. But there you go. There he is. Highly recommend Menasor. Oh, and you know what? The head does. I love the way the head looks. But obviously he can only look left and right. He can't look up and down. So I mean, I guess you can make him look up this way, but then you have that gaping hole there. So, but again, I'm just nitpicking this thing now. The one thing I did want to mention, I did see the DNA Designs, I think it's called, upgrade kit for this guy. I will be getting that because I think that kit addresses some of the issues that I have with it, which is the longer thighs, longer, thicker thighs, the slightly bigger feet. Certainly that is a plus for me. I know it comes with a different chest, but I like this chest. So I'll probably be keeping this part. And I know it also comes with articulated hands, which I think that's something that this figure definitely can use to improve it. But in all honesty, guys, again, stock as is, figure looks awesome. Now, oh, the last part I didn't mention is when you transform this guy, you are going to have a couple of pieces left from a trailer. He does have a gun. The instructions do tell you that he can use this thing as a turret. I think is very uninspired. So I kind of just folded this into a little cannon base to I'll maybe use this in a diorama type setting when I'm like setting up my displays with my other Decepticons. I don't really buy that whole cannon base for Menasor or gun. I think it looks kind of silly. But hey, I guess you can use this to set up, I don't know, backgrounds and stuff for photography. So you do get that. He can also use his Motormaster sword, but again, the sword comes off very, very small. And you guys can see what I did. I ended up putting all their weapons. It's missing two more. Just attaching it to the sword like this. But this is a sword that's supposed to go with Menasor, but again, I think it's too small. But yeah, that's something you could do. And I just again stuck the weapons there into it just because. So that's something you can do. And then moving on to the comparisons as far as what I have here. Let's start off with the main one here, which is Combiner Wars Menasor. Now, I will start this by saying that it's not a fair comparison because this Menasor has a bunch of upgrades from, I think, DNA and the hands or feet. I forget the company, but this thing is by no means stock. It took a lot to get it here, and even where it's at in this state is not perfect. This thing is stable. If I start moving this thing too much, he wiggles all over the place, and eventually he'll fall back or forward. This does not inspire confidence, and it has a bunch of, like I said, aftermarket kits included in it. The stock version itself was terrible looking. I hated the way that thing looked, the official form. So that's why I opted to do this whole alternate transformation for the torso, and I added this DNA kit. This whole lower section here that you see on this guy, these parts here, the head, that's not stock. That's all aftermarket. Same thing with the arms and the feet here to make it somewhat I guess, bearable to enjoy. I do think that individually, especially in vehicle mode, these guys are great. But this combined mode, as you see it, it took a lot of add-ons to get it to where it's at, and even then, it's not perfect. So, for example, this kit requires you to tab in this lower section to his legs, so he's permanently stuck in that A stance, unlike this guy. Uh, I don't even know if this guy has ratchets. This thing could not stand. If I were to tip it right now, this thing would fall. Versus this one could actually stand a couple of movements. If I move this guy too fast, the legs will fall off. The feet rather. The I just honestly no idea how I ended up with it. The stock version is terrible. With the add-ons, it's a bit more bearable, but this new Menasor, Legacy Menasor, definitely blows this guy out of the water. Um, if you have an option, in all honesty, go for this one. I know this one's been out for a while. Maybe you can get a knockoff, but I won't even invest in this one. Go for new Menasor there. Um, and the stock one is also, I believe, slightly shorter than this guy. So again, all the aftermarket parts are doing all the work. And the back here, you could see, I'm afraid, I don't know if you guys can see, he's already sort of leaning forward. But again, I would not recommend this guy. But just wanted to show him there so you guys could see the comparison there to a Combiner Wars with an aftermarket kit. So we'll move Menasor aside, hoping that he won't take a dive or his feet won't fall off. And here's another, I think this is from Power of the Primes. I always forget all these lines. I have entirely way too many toys. This is more representative of the size of the original Combiner Wars figures, but this thing again has some aftermarket or some third-party upgrades rather. That's what they're called. Different hands, different feet, the thigh fillers, for example, because this thing look very skinny in the thigh, which is one of the concerns I have for this guy, but the thighs in this guy are bigger than him. And it also has a different chest and a head, but I opted not to install that. But as you guys can see again, I mean, to me, there's no question. As I said, it's just the fact that I can do this to this guy, and he's like, yeah, whatever, dude. But this guy, if I even dream of doing that, he looks very spindly and loose, and yeah, I don't know if you guys can see those arms. Uh, it doesn't look bad. And again, this is a case where, to me, these older combiners, the strength of them is the individual bot modes. The individual bot modes, I think, are great. The combiner portion is sort of where they literally start to fall apart. Now, as I said, this has aftermarket feet, thigh fillers here, and the the hands here, and the gun I believe is also aftermarket. So, yeah, again, no question. This is a much better product than this. No question there. Now, before we move on to bigger comparisons there, of course, one of my favorite robots or Decepticons currently is Tarn. So there is Tarn next to Menasor to give you a good idea of what that size comparison will look like. I love this guy, but again, Menasor is much, much bigger, so you guys could see the comparison there. One last thing, I guess, before we move on, as I said, is as I mentioned, these ports on the legs are combiner war ports. So if you wanted to, you could take these off and grab a leg from one of the other combiners, which I'm going to attempt to do right now without breaking anything. So for example, here's the Combiner Wars. This is Walrider. And just trying to put it together so it doesn't fall apart. So if you wanted to, you could theoretically attach this here without much issue. The only problem is he's now one leg shorter than the other. And this doesn't quite work out for me. I don't like that. I think it looks dumb. Let's see if he could stand. Hey, look, he can support like that. But, just to show you what that will look like. You can't do that with the hands because the ports on the arms, sorry, are different. So that's something you can do if you wanted to mix and match for some reason, but I wouldn't even bother. These new figures are way better than what we got then. Just trying to get this in there. As far as the leg configuration, now I know some folks sort of prefer the look that allows you to put the legs this way. So that's something you can do, but again, I'm not a fan of it. I don't like the cars forward. I know, I think in newer configurations, like in the comics, in IDW comics, I think even there was a game where his car parts were essentially facing forward. I'm not a fan of that. I much prefer the stock look of that. To me, it looks much better. And then I guess just to close here, or before we close, as I said, my one nitpick, and it's a bit unrealistic for me anyway, is that I wish this guy would have been a little taller. And my reasoning for that is because I was kind of hoping foolishly, that he could perhaps scale a little better with something like the Combiner Wars Devastator. But alas, that wasn't the case. So I'm going to try to bring in Devastator into the picture. For you guys to see, and I'm going to need to pull the camera back slightly so you guys could see what I'm sort of referring to here. So this is how they compare size-wise. There's the Combiner Wars Devastator. That thing also has a couple of upgrades, but this is a way better figure than the Combiner Wars stuff like that. So There's the size difference. My hope was initially when when I started hearing that they announced they were gonna make a Devastator, a new one. Sorry, a Menasor. That I was like, oh man, it'd be great if he could be about the same size as Devastator here. But alas, it was not to be. So there you go. That was my wish for hoping that this guy could be a little taller. In all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if someone somewhere made a knockoff to be the same size as this guy. And if they do that, I may consider getting a knockoff, but we'll see. Um, it would have been nice if perhaps they made official Menasor same size as Devastator so you guys could see that there. And then just one last comparison before we wrap up. We'll move Devastator here out of the way. And bear with me. I'm gonna try to bring in one more person or bot into view here. But here he is next to a third-party combiner. This is MMC's Assaultus, I believe is the name. Again, no comparison. This figure on the right, it's like hundreds of dollars, right? Like each bot is well above $100. But again, that was my wish for wanting to have a Menasor that was a little taller, so perhaps he could scale better with something like this and with Devastator. And again, different whole price range. This is not official by any means. But it would have been nice to wish that this guy would have been taller. But anyway, I think I've babbled enough. Hopefully you got something out of this. But if you did get something, is that this is an awesome combiner. He's a great figure. If you are looking for an official Menasor, this is definitely, in my opinion, the way to go. Even though some of the individual figures do have some shortcomings, I think for me, because I was looking forward to having a Menasor in the collection that actually would pose, that could stand without falling, that looks solid and looked the part. This is it, guys. I would highly recommend this bot mode. And once I get the upgrades, the kit from, I think it's also from DNA, I will definitely post a follow-up video to, show anyone interested out there, how that kit sort of fits in. But again, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, maybe watch one of my other videos. But as far as this Menasor, definitely recommend it. Thank you so much for spending your very valuable time with me. Be nice to yourself, be nice to each other, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.